This is the Dynasty Roundtable podcast. Tonight we have a special episode. The combine just wrapped up, and I had to call in the A team. I had to call in the guys that were, well, one of the guys was there. The other guy has been there before, so he knows what he's talking about as well. Tonight we have Matty and Cody on the show on the Dynasty Roundtable. Cody and Matty, always a pleasure to have you guys on. What the hell is going on tonight?
Relaxing, chilling, doing good.
Yeah.
You know how the boys do. We just had a nice little, half-hour preamble, which is light work for us, honestly. We could have probably went for another 2 hours.
Healthy.
Just preamble.
Yeah, well, there's... I won't go into that on the record.
Talked for 30 minutes, and then we got to Seth's kid for about 2 minutes. Right.
Yeah, so. And then I came up with an unfavorable comp for my child, because this is what we do when you're in the fantasy football business. I comped my undersized baby to Jaden Blue, and they said that is a bad comp for your baby. You do not want Jaden Blue. And I had him written on my sleepers list, and I immediately erased him because I just see the extent of my knowledge on Jaden Blue is I watched a game that he played, and I was like, he's got a little pep in his step there. Maybe he might be something. And then, this is why I talked to Cody, because I was going to ask Cody about this guy because Cody covers Texas for Orange Bloods. So if you're a college football fan, if you're a Texas fan, first of all, you're probably already on the Orange Bloods, whatever they call it, the message boards. You're probably already there. But if you're not, you got to fix your life and go over there, because it's literally like a wet dream for a Texas Longhorns fan over there, right?
And it's not even just like it's all Longhorns, of course, like that's what the main topic of discussion is, but I mean there's stuff on there that is out of bounds from the Longhorns conversation. Like they're talking about like different types of foods in Texas. They're talking about baseball. I know you guys like the Astros and Rangers conversation. No, I'm just kidding, but I know you guys like baseball conversation. Like there's things that it's a message board, right? And it's the largest message board in North American sports. Period.
Mm-hmm.
End of discussion. Cool. So that's what it is. And it's not just Texas Longhorns football. And there's a lot of mighty people that are on the site that you don't even know they're there. You're talking to somebody that could be Matthew McConaughey, but you wouldn't know.
Wow. You never know. That's why you got to go. That's why you got to go.
I'm going to challenge that comment. If I catch Matthew McConaughey in Orange Blood's message boards, I guarantee you I'm going to be able to pick that out. It's going to be something that it's going to be something that Woody Harrelson would reply to. Like, I just want you to stop saying odd shit.
Is he going to type out all right? Is that how you know?
It's going to be something cryptic, very vague, mysterious.
I don't know how we could recreate this scenario in real life, but I don't believe you. I don't think you could pick out Matthew McConaughey by his handwriting. I don't think you could.
It's not even his handwriting. It's his typing.
It's his typing. Yeah, it's bad punctuation. There's no way. There's no way.
Here's another way to think about it. It's one of the only places, if not the only place in America or in the world, that you could potentially write an article or put analysis into the ethos about a quarterback or something, or a player, right? And then hypothetically be arguing with Vince Young about said quarterback and not even know you're arguing with Vince Young. You'd never know.
Wow.
Think about that.
Wow.
Quinn Ewers sucks. No, he doesn't. He's actually blank. And you're like, I don't know who you are, but you're wrong. I believe this, right? And now that person's like, you get what I'm saying?
I'm Vince Young, bitch.
Yeah.
You don't even know. You don't even know the half of it.
What is Vince Young doing these days? What's he up to? Is this what his life is, that he's just on the message board for Texas?
Let me ask Grok quick. If I ask Grok, what is Vince Young doing these days? Grok says Grok's been keeping busy with a mix of personal and professional activities. He works at UT as a development officer in the Division of Diversity and Community Engagement. He also has a son that's in the class of 2028 that plays quarterback.
Okay. All right.
Didn't know I was going to go with Grok, did you?
No, I didn't know.
You love Grok now. You're a
Dude,
big
Grok,
guy.
I'll tell you what, if you haven't used Grok, Matty, okay, show's getting off to a great start. Matty.
No, we had a guy. No, we need to keep this going for as long as possible because we had a guy in our comments the other day who's like, "You guys were a bit chatty at the beginning." And I was like, you guys were a bit. That was the comment. It's like you guys were a bit chatty at the beginning. It's like, and I was like, we'll be even chattier next time, motherfucker.
This is life, son. This is
Yeah.
life. So a year ago, Matty was at the combine with Alex Dunlap from Roster Watch and myself, and the one night we began our conversation at a Buffalo Wild Wings, which Matty we went to 3 times this time, and they had the same deal: $10 for a double cheeseburger, 4 wings, and tots for $10. Can't beat it. B-dubs after dark. Anyway, the conversation started at B-dubs about who is the wide receiver 1 in the draft class last year: Rome, Malik, Marv. That thing started at like 8:30 at night. It didn't end till 3 in the morning, and it ended with us going back to the Airbnb and watching all 22 on all 3 guys. Great night. This year, one of the nights, I pulled up Grok because Alex said something about utilizing Grok for something, and I'd never really played with Grok on X. People don't know what I'm talking about. It's the new AI Grok 3.0 on X, and we started working on like a we do our Texas Longhorn show on a show sheet for Texas Longhorns based show. I'm telling you, spent 3 hours, got into a rabbit hole with Grok on how to create a show sheet. And it was like,
wow,
you have to teach it a little bit because it's like, well, we also did it. Actually, the better story is probably to tell you that we actually did some of our prize pick selections with Grok by like asking for that thing will just search the entire internet for data. And it's a wild anything. I'm going to end it here, but it's just a wild tool that we spent hours curating a show sheet, finding like the best way to take advantage of 40-yard dash times on prize picks. It was wild. Sorry for the tangent there, but that was our long night in Indy this year.
No, I should at the next show we do, I should just generate the show sheet with Grok. I'm gonna see how that works out for us. I mean, we might trail off into some weird spots, but we do that anyway, so I guess that's fine.
If you don't ask Grok the right questions, also like if you just say like, give me a fantasy football topic to talk about on March 5th, it might say like Todd Gurley plays for the Falcons. It it might say something like that, and you might have to correct it and be like, Grok, that was 10 years ago, and it'll be like, oh, you're right, I'm wrong. Let me get up-to-date information. And you're like, that's better.
Wow.
All of these words,
So,
all I got from that story, Cody, was y'all missed me in Indy.
Heard.
Yeah, so we're going to be on the lookout for some Todd Gurley-like players from this year's draft class.
Great.
And
no degenerative knees.
Segue.
That's how you know I've gotten good at this. Just saying. Todd Gurley-like players from the combine. But my first question, Cody, you were there. How much first like you've been to multiple? How many combines have you been to now?
4.
Been to 4 combines. So my bigger picture question that's going to be the foundation for everything that we're going to talk about tonight is how much does the NFL combine matter in the grand scheme of things? Because you have some people call it, oh, it's just the underwear Olympics. And then other people are like, actually, no, you can learn a lot of information at the combine. So set us straight on this question.
Well, those people are ones that haven't been there. That's the cool thing, is that if you were told, that's just the underwear Olympics, it's probably coming from a 74-year-old senile grandpa of yours that literally doesn't know how to operate a television. And there was no combine when he was, youth, when you could go to these events. Never went to an event. If you go to the event, you actually understand that these players go through a pretty grueling process of a couple of days where, they go through all these MRIs. They talk to, between 5 and 20 NFL teams. Kelvin Banks, for example, from Texas, talked to 19 teams. Like every year there's a couple of guys that just have a maniacal schedule, and they're all these short 10 to 15 minute meetings, and they get their medicals done. They meet with the media. They get their measurements done. They do the on-field work. They run. They bench. They got all this stuff on top of, and Matty's been on the floor. When you go in there, it's like, it's not just that they have to go to the podium for their designated 20 minutes. Then, like, especially if you're like a Shedeur Sanders or Travis Hunter, guys like this, you have to walk around and go to do like, the Sirius XM setup, the Golic setup, the Fox setup, the CBS setup, the overtime setup, the ESPN, like all these different, it's a long process, and it's getting your name out there to the public. Like, if people haven't watched college football, which we all watch college football, but like there are a lot of people out there that even in my own life don't watch college football, and they'll just come to me like now and they'll be like, who's the Georgia tight end? And I'm like, there isn't a Georgia tight end, dude. What are you talking about? Like, that was last year. Like, they don't have their brain on the thing. So when they see the new TikToks or the new videos on YouTube or the new show or the new segment on ESPN and the draft process is coming through, these guys are getting their names out there, right? Plus, they have the meetings with the teams. Plus, they get the medicals, and you will find out in 3 weeks who had failed medicals, who we were worried about that didn't have failed medicals. That'll boost themselves at the board. Then you have the on-field stuff, which everyone just alludes to and credits with the combine. They forget about all the other stuff. The on-field stuff is a whole different conversation, right? So I think to just put it in closed circuit, like, it's very important for all the other crap, but the on-field stuff, for what people do see, I do think that kind of is a little bit less important. You want to hit certain thresholds as far as length, as far as height, as far as weight, and sometimes as far as like 10-yard dash, broad jump, some of those things like teams want to see, but they're not end all be all. And that's why a lot of guys opt out.
Matty, what's your take? Anything to add to that?
I mean, Cody's spot on with everything he's saying. The only thing I'm really going to add is the combine's very important. It's just not important in the ways that most people kind of think. I mean, it is about the on-field testing, but it's really more about these NFL front offices, these NFL scouts confirming what they believe to be true to either be true or not. So they don't care when they see a guy, when they figure out that a guy like Jaden Blue is fast, they don't really care. But when they see a guy like Omarion Hampton, who's supposedly big and fast, come in at 221, have a ridiculous broad jump, run a 4.4 640, have a ridiculous speed score, it confirms their biases. And now we get the NFL's confirmation that, okay, maybe this guy's a first-round pick. And as fantasy players, now we can kind of start game planning our rookie drafts because of the confirmation and the confidence that the NFL has in these guys. And I think that's really the most important for us fantasy guys, is the NFL gets the chance to talk to these kids and then, all right, we thought he was fast. He is fast. He came in on the right weight. And that's really all that matters at the end of the day.
Very well put. And it's a good perspective that we appreciate as well, because Seth and I on our last video talked a lot about how we focused more on not overreacting to combine numbers, which is a message, that needs to be repeated pretty much every combine cycle. But the added perspective of where the value is in the combine, and then also kind of commenting to those who think it should go away or anything like that. Like, it's still a very interesting spectacle, something that, I wish I had been able to go to at some point or another. Maybe I'll make it out to one. If people keep booing the likes of Will Howard, maybe it'll end up being closed to the public. But Matty, I'll kick it right back to you for the next question. And you can take it however you want in terms of specific athletic performance or boosting their draft stock. Maybe it be any information from interviews, but who had, in your view, the best combine, and where does that person, are they moving up in the rookie ranks? Is it someone who has, not been recognized that needs to be more recognized? Take that in whatever direction you'd like.
So there's a number of ways I could go with this. I'm sure we'll kind of ping pong with a few names, but I'm going to start. For me, the most important name was Matthew Golden. The performance that he put in Indy, I think, opened a lot of eyes. I think now you have, some of the most popular guys in the draft space, like a Todd McShay, being very confident that he's a first-round pick, that he's maybe the wide receiver one of the class. We knew he was a baller. We knew He was the number one go-to guy in the Texas offense down the home stretch against the most, the toughest competition, the biggest games. But then when he comes out and runs a 4.29 40, the fastest 40 time in the class, it really just now going to open up everyone's eyes. And like I said, now the NFL can have confirmation that this guy is not only sure-handed, not only a gamer, a baller, but crazy athletic, crazy fast. And now some teams that maybe thought, we like what he could do, but can he be a game breaker for us? Now they get that confirmation. And now I think we see Matthew Golden probably come off the board, potentially in the first 20 picks. So now all of a sudden we didn't know if we were going to have this wide receiver type of guy, or if it's going to be Burden, how it's going to shake out. Well, now we definitely have to add one more guy to that first round of the rookie drafts in Golden.
Cody, what's your takeaway on Golden? Is the hype real with this guy? Is it a high dog rating with him? Just comment on that.
Golden, I think Matty hit it all. The Golden thing for me, I graded him pre-playoffs, and he's one of the first players I wrote up over at Roster Watch, and I graded him with a second round grade. And I felt at the time, you have to take into account, this is pre-playoffs, so this is pre like Matthew Golden apex 164-yard game. This is pre really getting his face in front of the world from that perspective, and really getting his opportunity. Like that Georgia game, 162 yards, Arizona State 149, got a touchdown. He was good for the majority of the year, and I had a second round grade on him, and I felt hot. And then he goes through the playoffs, and all of a sudden you hear Daniel Jeremiah, wide receiver 2, Todd McShay, he's up here. All these other guys talk about him being up in that conversation. And the thing about Matthew Golden, I went back and read my write-up on him, was I said he had deceptive downfield speed. It's not breakaway speed, and you can watch it. He gets caught a couple of times. It's not he doesn't have 4.29 speed on the field. And he is going to be labeled a big winner, which I agree with. He's a massive winner because he solidified the first round pick stamp. I don't want to get over my skis on it. I have him at wide receiver 2 now, and I've adjusted my grade, obviously post playoff, post combine, and he's got a first round grade, but I don't know. It was interesting a year ago right now from a Texas perspective. He was at Houston for 2 years. He played with Tank Dell. He played with Samuel Brown, who was one of the big transfer portal guys last year to Miami, participated in the combine as well. And he was the punt return guy. He had over 700 all-purpose return yards the last couple of years at Houston. And the people at Texas knew that guy's a problem because they played him in the Big 12 the last couple of years. That guy's a problem. And they knew they needed receivers, and they knew he was a guy to go get. And when I talked to Golden at the combine, it was about him saying, like, they were the first people to contact him, was Texas was. And he is the dog rating, I wouldn't say is incredibly high, but it's high because his mental makeup is very strong. When you think about like the menace level guys like the George Pickenses of the world, that's closer to the Isaiah Bond. Isaiah Bond is he's much closer to being delusional, which is like the maniacal thing with George Pickens, than anything. Whereas Matthew Golden is level-headed and just an extremely intelligent receiver.
Gotcha. I'll nominate my player, and I have all these with a question mark. I'm not sure why I put the question mark at the end, but I think we have to talk about Omarion Hampton, right? I mean, Omarion Hampton, he's been my RB2 basically through the whole process. I think he solidified that at the combine. I don't like anybody now who, and I love TreVeyon Henderson. I'm all in on TreVeyon Henderson, but the people who had TreVeyon Henderson as their RB2, I'm sorry. Like I love TreVeyon Henderson, and I can't put him at RB2 because of what Omarion Hampton did at the combine. I mean, I heard a little bit of the Mind of Mansion show with you, and you were talking about Alex's comp for him, as you were talking about it, maybe Jonathan Taylor. And when I heard that name, I thought that seems about right. I don't know if he's as good as Jonathan Taylor, but damn, like the film's good from what I can see. Again, I'm not an NFL scout, but he looks good on film. The speed is there for sure. The pass catching is good. I just think everything's good with this guy, and it's going to be hard for me to really see a world where he falls much further than early day 2. I mean, he's probably a late round 1 pick now. So thoughts on Omarion Hampton, because I think he crushed the combine.
I think Omarion Hampton did everything that he needed to do. This is a guy that came in, and I had some preconceived expectations for guys like Henderson. You look at that running back group in reality, I mean, it's stacked to the gills, top to bottom. But I had preconceived expectations for seeing Kaleb Johnson. I already saw Elic Ayomanor to the Senior Bowl, seeing Trey Henderson, seeing Dylan Sampson. Expectations of these guys being more physically overpowering. Judkins even weighed 221 pounds, wasn't physically overpowering. Omarion Hampton is a guy that when he showed up at the interview, and the first time we get to see him is when they're up on the podium, and he shows up and he's hands down on the counter, podium, locked in, traps popping through his like this, like popping through, right? And it's not a tight shirt. And he's like walking around, you're like, that thing right there is not normal. It's different than everything else that we've seen. Dylan Sampson, tiny, much smaller than I expected. Trey Henderson, he's rocked up, but he's small. Quinshon Judkins weighs 220 pounds. But he's not overpowering. Omarion Hampton is like so clearly different, even than Ashton Jeanty. Jeanty's into sick talent, but from a physical standpoint, even Ollie Gordon, none of them compared to what the Omarion Hampton experience was like for the first 5 minutes of just like seeing this guy in the flesh.
Yeah, no, I was massively impressed with what he did and what he looked like, and from all the reports, I mean, I'm kind of taking low-hanging fruit here. I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody thought he just crushed it, knocked it out of the park. Cody, feel free to reiterate on somebody that's already been talked about, but who's your guy that won the combine?
I think going through and updating my rankings over the course of the last 48 hours, a receiver that I'll talk about is a guy that I was high on him from a initial grade perspective. I had a 2nd-round grade on him. I still do. Is he was injured during the year in the early part. He played a couple games, had a knee injury, had to have surgery, but he's been back-to-back all Mountain West. It's Tory Horton, who is a guy that was number 10 in my rankings coming in, and I moved him up 4 spots. He moved the most inside my top 15, most up, I should say, up to number 6 overall. He came in 6'2", 196 pounds. He ran. I didn't know if he was going to run because, like I said, he had knee surgery, missed 7 games this year. He comes in, and when I watch these guys on tape, I put a projected 40 next to their name just to see how far off I am from game speed to what they actually run, right? And Horton runs a 4.41. I expected low 4.4s, 4.48, 4.47, 4.41 off of knee surgery, off of averaging 3.45 yards per route run, off of being a guy that should have come out last year in the NFL draft. And the frame he had, which I was a little worried with the expectation of him being 6'3", 185, 188, like this anomaly of a build, like a Jerome Simpson, like a Devonta Smith stretch man. Like imagine like Devonta Smith is, they call him the Slim Reaper for a reason, but imagine taking Devonta Smith and stretching him a couple more inches. Like it doesn't work. And he comes in a little shorter, which is actually good, 6'2.5", and he comes in 196 pounds. And I'm like, man, this is thank you. Like that's what I wanted. And so I think Tory Horton did himself a good service at the combine this year, coming in proper height, proper weight, proper length, had the 9-inch hands, which isn't big, but it's good enough. It's not 8.5, which is the one worry I have with Luther Burden right now. Mm-hmm. He runs the 4.41. And I thought that Tory Horton, who's not being discussed really on X right now, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring him up. I thought Tory Horton did himself a lot of good during the 2025 NFL Combine.
How about this for a take? Does And we're saying you mentioned Ashton Jeanty a little bit there, and as we know, he didn't really do anything at the combine. Is there any? I know there's obviously no downside to not performing, but with him and what we've seen from some of these other running backs in terms of their athleticism scores, Hampton being as good as he is with his build. If Jeanty came out and did something and it had a lackluster performance, would we have seen potentially, how would NFL GMs and scouts have viewed that? Is that a nothing burger to them? Or in that stage, would other running backs showing up Jeanty actually have some weight in those circles?
I don't think it would have been a zero of an effect. It of course would have had to just been what the result would have been, right? Is from like let me try to think about how I want to say this. From like a output perspective, if you see a guy like Jeanty, who when you look at Jeanty, difference in his level of talent, pure talent, versus like the rest of the class is kind of I know it's cool now to like be like, oh, Omarion Hampton like should maybe be in the conversation of RB1, or like Matt Kelly will be like, oh, there's like 4 dudes that could end up being RB1 in this class. It's like, but from a talent perspective, if you like watched football this year, it's like 2018. Like Saquon was here, and then like the rest of that class was shite, but it was like a clear drop from like pick 2 where Saquon went in the top 5, which is generally doesn't happen in the history of the last decade, down to like Rashad Penny and Nick Chubb and Ronald Jones and Sony Michel, all these other guys that like at the end of round 1, right? In the beginning of round 2, it's a whole different level. And the thing that could have closed that gap outside of like what people already knew he was going to be 5'8", right? He's short, he's 211 pounds, he's compact. And people know he has the breakaway speed, the burst and stuff. But if he would have come out and like jumped like 9'9", like a 35.5-inch vertical, and like ran some like 4.56, it would have just inherently entered some conversation in. The thing that really would have hurt him is if he would have had like a problem in like the on-field workouts, which I don't think he would have had. So I think to say like, and I think if I answer your question correctly, it's like, could he have done anything to really allow an Omarion Hampton to enter the real conversation and to actually be like, all right, the Cowboys on the board at 12. We know they're going to take it back. This is hypothetical. We know they're going to take it back. Who's to tell us that Jerry's not thinking about Omarion Hampton over Ashton Jeanty? I don't think there's enough there that he could have possibly done wrong to allow that to happen.
See, I think it's the chances are a little bit higher. I think him not participating was a smart business move because, as I mentioned at the top, confirming biases. If there was a bit of doubt in NFL front offices that the Boise State competition is not up to snub with what he'll face in the NFL, if he would have come out and, like you said, put up stinkers in all of the explosive metrics, I think there's a world in which the NFL could look at him as the 3rd best running back. Like, obviously, great contact balance, great athlete, Heisman Trophy finalist, all that stuff. But you confirm some of the potential doubt, some of the potential question marks, red flags that NFL teams have, and all of a sudden he's just not as bulletproof. And I think by not participating, it's just kind of like the mystique. It's that episode of It's Always Sunny. The scratch ticket isn't scratched, so they all believe it's a winner. So I think it was a great move on his part to not participate, but I think Cody's right in by saying he was not going to tank his value. He would have stayed a 1st-round pick. But if these NFL scouts, these NFL front offices had some doubt, and they parlay that with some doubt that they might have based on his competition, and obviously, that game against Penn State, he looked a hell of a lot better than the stats showed. But we're also talking about the 4 guys behind him in my rankings: Judkins, Henderson, Hampton, top 5 in the broad jump, top 7 in the vert. All of them ran under 4.5. If there was a big difference, a big trailer for Jeanty, it would have been awful, I think, in terms of the NFL minds. But for us fantasy gamers, like, of course, he's going to stay in that 1st round. He's going to stay in the pocket. We're going to be able to get him. But, yeah, I think it was a smart move by him not running.
Yeah, I'll just real quick, I'll put it in fantasy perspective for us Dynasty people. I think the decision that Jeanty made was good for him, but the fact that all these other running backs did what they did just made the 101 a little bit less valuable. If the 101 is indeed Ashton Jeanty, right? Which I assume it is for most people. So the world where you could tear down from the 101 to get a Quinshon Judkins is less likely now than it was before the combine, which sucks if you have the 101, but it's great if you're sitting in the middle of the first round and somebody's maybe looking to trade up to that spot, right? So I think from a dynasty perspective, that's the takeaway. Is like if you have the 101, it's a little bit less valuable now.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I think
Mr.
honestly, I think in totality, all the picks after that have a little bit been nuked. I think the Tet stuff has been nuked a little bit. I think the Kaleb Johnson stuff's been nuked a little bit. I think receiver feels a little bit more open for people in general. I've had Burden number 1 through the process. Matty texted me. I didn't reply to him yesterday because he asked about Burden being number 1. And it's like, I knew we were going to talk about it tonight. And it's like, the only question mark I have on the entire Burden profile is his hands. They're 8.5 inches. And they fit the archetype. He fits the archetype. He came in at 6 foot, 206 pounds. He ran the 4.41. I love his profile. But in the end, it's like Odell Beckham, 10-inch hands. Diggs, 9.5-inch hands. Like the poster boy for the archetype build that never hit was Anthony Miller, 10-inch hands. Like having strong hands matters at the wide receiver position. And it's the only mark I have on Burden's profile. Tet, I have a lot more question marks. The wingspan doesn't meet the height. His frame that I've talked about with Drake London the last couple of years, like when you saw Drake London at the combine, it was like this, he looks like a basketball player. When you look at Tet McMillan, I turned to Alex, I go, do you remember Flat Stanley from middle school? He goes, I go, Flat Stanley, you know, the character that you made out of a sheet of paper and mailed across the country? Like, yeah, that's Tet McMillan. And he didn't test. And we knew he wasn't going to be a good tester if he did test. And now I think that there's a lot more question mark about it. So I think that the actual value that came out of was, I kind of disagree with you, Seth. Like, I kind of think that 101, people still believe it's still worth a lot because it's just Jeanty. It's got a lot of name driven into it. And like, I think people maybe the 2-3, running back, sure. Like, but I think that the like picks, let's call it 4, 5, 6, have lost value.
I'll quickly contest that by saying I think while I agree with your sentiment, your process, I think that's speaking a little bit more on the sharp side of the spectrum, whereas the average, even up to like the 75th percentile dynasty league, their managers are saying Omarion Hampton, big and fast. Trayvon Henderson, fast. Judkins, big and fast. And there's these names that have gotten very popular. And like, even though Kaleb Johnson didn't test very well, I still think the masses are very intrigued at the prospect of taking Kaleb Johnson. The masses think of this class still as, you know, RB loaded, which it is. And then you have Tet McMillan, Luther Burden, you know, like Buka, who could all be first round pick receivers. You know, we're looking at Burden being a first round pick. We're looking at Tet McMillan potentially being like a top 15 pick. And that still matters a lot to the average gamer. I do agree that, you know, if the four of us are in a dynasty league together, which we are, the Dynasty Roundtable League, that same sentiment is probably not going to be shared. They're going to be thinking closer to what you're saying, right? Where, you know, there's still, there's some open races, there's some questionable profiles. But the rest of the masses just see the hype. So I think both of you are correct. It just kind of depends on what lens you're looking through it in.
Yeah, 1 QB rookie drafts of a casual group are just pumped that 1 through 10 is going to be running backs. But I think Cody's right in that, like the people that understand the difference of positional value, scarcity, roster construction, there's been a big blow because there is no wide receiver pillar that we can hang our hat on right now.
Babbage, great conversation, but who is your winner? Because we never got to it.
A bunch of mine got stolen, so I'm gonna dip down here and take someone who just hasn't been named. Elic Ayomanor is a name that started to gain a little bit more steam in the public sphere. A guy who, months ago we had inside of our top 24, definitely inside of our top 36. Just not really sure what the NFL was going to think. Stanford product, box score numbers don't look great. Obviously, when you think of the Stanford Cardinal football offense of the past couple of years, there's certainly some contextual factors that would limit someone's production, but he checks a lot of requisite boxes in terms of his on-field play, and then he comes out here in the 40, and this was, going to Matty's point, kind of confirming, like, okay, we think Elic Ayomanor is fast at 6'2". I don't know exactly what he weighed in on, but I'm staring at 206 right now.
206 is what he weighed in, yep.
So running a 4.44, getting that 88th percentile speed score at that size is very solid. Burst score of 85th percentile. So he did really well in the burst drills. Confirming the priors that, yeah, he's going to be both an athlete and a player. And now I'm hearing, day 2 guy seems to be locked in. I mentioned on our last show, Seth, that I think he's probably going to get drafted in the second round if this draft goes a little bit like last year's in terms of trying to grab surrounding talent like wide receivers and running backs in those rounds. So I think Elic Ayomanor did a really nice job and is starting to become more of a household name as the draft starts kicking in.
Let's go. Great call, by the way. His 10-yard split was a bit disappointing, but other than that, he tested really well.
But again, real quick on the 10-yard split, I mentioned this a lot. Like, these dudes aren't sprinters, and Cody just mentioned all the stuff that these dudes have to go through on that day, and then they have to do one thing that they've never done before in their life. Most of them, which is get down in a sprinter stance and run a 40. And like, seriously, if you rise up in your posture too soon, if you veer off to the left just a little bit, that's precious tenths of seconds that are coming off your time. And it makes sense why a guy like Kaleb Johnson, who slipped out of the box twice, like had a disappointing 40 time. It's so those are the contextual factors we got to remember.
Good point. That is a great point. I'll throw it out to the round table. The second question, is there anybody that we missed? Is there anybody who you think deserves to be mentioned, but maybe they're not in the conversation for best combine ever? I'll throw it out to anybody who wants to answer. Go ahead. Anybody.
I'll go quick with this one. And I'll keep it just to numbers, right? There's 2 guys that are going to make this list of a short list right here that had great athletic combines. Go to the running back position. You got to be 5'10". You got to be 215 pounds. You got to have more than a 10.5-foot broad jump, a 38-inch vertical, and run a sub 4.5. You'd say it's a pretty damn good combine, right? Sub 4.5, 38-inch vert, 10.5-foot broad, big boy, 5'10", 215. Short list. Isaac Garendo, Breece Hall, Saquon Barkley, Adrian Peterson, David Johnson, Justin Fargas, probably the only miss in that list. 3 guys from this class entered that conversation. Omarion Hampton, who you mentioned a minute ago, Quinshon Judkins from Ohio State, runs a 4.48, 11-foot broad, 38.5-inch vertical at 5'11", 221 pounds. And Donovan Edwards, the ghost of Donovan Edwards, showed up at the combine and ran a 4.44 at 38.5-inch vertical at 5'11". He was actually 205. So I don't know why he made this threshold on this chart I'm using on Combine IQ. He doesn't deserve to be in this conversation. We'll just leave it at Quinshon Judkins.
I think
I don't know why that this is broken. I don't know why that did that.
To psych you out in the Dynasty Roundtable so everyone laughs at you in the comments. But anywho, another thing I'm going to bring up real quick is a guy didn't even test, and I think he had a great combine. Colston Loveland, coming in at 6'6", 248.
Yeah.
He's not even 10 pounds lighter than Tyler Warren now. And now I think teams are going to look at this guy and understand how smooth and how he could get open in pretty big situations, and how he did that at Michigan, how he could do that in the NFL level. I think he went a long way just coming in with those measurables, being 6'6", 248. I think he's going to be a lock in the first round. And now I think in our TEP rookie drafts, he should only be a handful of picks, maybe even just 2 or 3 behind Warren.
Babish, anybody that stood out?
Yeah. How about Brashard Smith? I'll bring him up again. Confirmed his speed. I like that he didn't come in massively underweight or a lot underweight from what he was expected to be. Coming in at 194. So given his build or his profile, like that's what we would expect of him. Plus being that close to 200. Like granted, I don't think I ever expect him to play over 200, but there's a little bit of room there. You have enough muscle on you to where he could probably gain, another 6-7 pounds of muscle and be a comfortable, 195 maybe playing weight going forward. So that would be good for him to put on a few pounds of muscle. But I just like the fact, like Rich Eisen, like mentioned Brashard Smith and like the comp to Tyrone Tracy. And that's when, like they're starting to become a storyline. Like he did exactly what he needed to do, which is get the name of Brashard Smith, out there.
Yeah, and I'll throw out real quick, and anybody can chime in on this, but I've been thinking about doing this for a while, and I don't know if it's crazy or not, but Jaxson Dart, I've always been intrigued with him and his play style, and I think it's really conducive for fantasy football because what's the one thing? I mean, maybe you could point to Jalen Milroe if you like Jalen Milroe, but what's the one thing we don't have in this class? It's a quarterback that can kind of do it all, that's accurate enough, can throw deep down the field, but that's also mobile. And Jaxson Dart could be that guy. Now, do I know if he's that guy or not? I don't know, but I think he had a pretty good combine, and I think as a result, he deserves to be moved up our rookie rankings at least a little bit. And I also think, and this is where the hot take comes in, I also think he's got a shot. Because I was thinking about this today, and sometimes when I think too much about something, stupid ideas come. Sometimes brilliant ideas come. Most of the time they're stupid, but hear me out. I was thinking, what if one of these teams that's stuck in veteran quarterback purgatory would trade up from the second round, or maybe they're just like, F it. There's nobody we like at the back half of the first round. Seattle Seahawks, maybe Detroit Lions if they don't think Jared Goff can get the job done. I'm just throwing it out there. Like, is there any chance that this guy goes in the first round? Because I think it's at least possible. I might have opened up a can of worms here.
I've soured quite a bit on the quarterback class. It felt like everyone fell flat on their face, and now it's Cam Ward is the only lock in round 1.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, I don't think there's a single quarterback. I think that Shough is probably the only one that I may even consider dipping my toe in that water after Cam Ward.
Which is wild. I'm sorry. This Tyler Shough stuff is fucking wild.
No,
this
I know.
48-year-old quarterback all of a sudden has a good interview. He's an articulate fella at 32 years old with 7 PhDs. And now all of a sudden we're going to talk about this guy as being anything more than an older Spencer Rattler with a more livelier arm. Like, come on. What is this? This Shough stuff is outrageous. It's outrageous.
I don't love Shough like some others do. What I'm saying is past Cam at perceived value, I'm okay without drafting Shedeur because it's all team dependent for me with Shedeur. I think Shedeur is going to be fine if he lands in the right spot. After that, the perceived value for any of the quarterbacks is second round. And that's basically I can make my decision. And of the field, Shough is the one that I think has the liveliest arm, has the prototypical size, ran a 4.64, only guy that ran a 40 in his group. Has some moxie, was once one of the, I know this is a cockamamie list of guys, you can go back in the history of it, was once considered in way too early mock drafts in 2023 as a top 10 pick when he was at Texas Tech. Then he goes to, or was it Oregon, then Oregon, then Texas Tech. Transferred to Texas Tech. Yeah. He was mocked once he transferred to Texas Tech. Then he gets hurt again, blah, blah, blah. Now he's at Louisville. And I think that's the only guy that I watched that has the liveliest arm, the predictable size. He ran the fastest. He's got his head on his shoulders. And I think that's the problem with the quarterback group. Is like, it's not that Shough is like special or anything. It's that Shough is the only one that really kind of like this is cockamamie. Get this. This guy sucks. This guy sucks. This guy is one of the worst at This guy sucks.
Sorry, Joe. Sorry, Joe. At Joe A _NFL.
As soon as we started talking about him, I knew. I was like, I saw some dude with a ridiculous take on him, and so I hit
100%.
3.1. 3.1's a good grade. B+.
Mhm.
Dude, I don't 3.1.
Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill's my comp, and this guy's my QB1. That is the definition of the problem.
Top
with the
10
class.
pick.
That's the problem.
Top 10
with the
pick.
class. Yeah, but
See
come
this? Top 10
This
pick.
guy was in the high
Please.
school recruiting class, the same one as Trevor Lawrence.
on. Child, please. Child, please.
All right. Sorry, Joe. I really didn't mean for this to devolve
This guy had a
into
razor in college, and I mean the flip phone.
Oh,
I
That's
to-
That's a
here.
bar.
Yeah.
That's a bar right there. But
Yeah.
anyway, the point is, like, Shough's the only one I would even dip my toe in the water until like the 6th round. The 6th round, I'll take a shot on like Cam Miller from North Dakota State. Otherwise, dude, these guys know, man. There was a report that came out today and yesterday morning from Albert Breer, who does the Monday morning quarterback, and like a lot of the conversation coming out of the combine was Garrett Nussmeier from LSU would have been a top 10 pick. Drew Aller would have been a top 10 pick. Cade Klubnik could have been a first-round pick. That was the problem with this draft class. You missed out on a lot of guys that could have declared that didn't. And all the NFL teams know that. They don't just scout 1 year at a time. They know these guys exist, and they know next year's class is better.
All right, we got about 13 minutes left, so we're gonna hit these last 2 questions with a little speed. But Matty, we'll start with you. We're gonna flip it. Worst combine, if there is such a thing. Who fits that category?
I think it has to be Tez Johnson.
Ding,
5'9",
ding, ding, ding.
54, and then he runs a 4.51. What is he going to do on an NFL field? I don't see how this guy's going to translate to be an NFL player. And he's fallen into the kind of roster fodder situation. Horrible combine outcome for Tez Johnson. Apparently, the Oregon skill position players, they don't test well, and I don't think it's going to go in his favor this year.
Yeah, I was gonna nominate either Will Howard, which kind of feels like low hanging fruit because I think we all know the Will Howard story, but he did not have a great combine. But then the other guy I was gonna throw out there was Jordan James. I don't think Jordan James had a very good combine either. So yeah, I don't know what the deal is because obviously Bucky Irving didn't have a great 40-yard dash time either, but Jordan James. Like, you just kind of scroll on the NFL Combine results. Nothing this guy did was spectacular. 4.55, 40-yard dash. His 10-yard split was amongst the lower. It's tied with Kaleb Johnson for last. So, yeah, Jordan James would be my guy.
And he came in light, too, which I was like, what are we doing here? Tez is a great one. I mean, this is the new, I don't know if you guys have used it, the new Combine IQ tool. Shout out to Mike Band, roster watch legend.
Super cool.
It's a very awesome tool because it's automatically like they input it real time. And anyway, the database, like if you want to, like, you can play around with it. Draft class, minimum height, weight, max 3-cone, min broad jump, short, all this crap, right? Well, the problem is the weight minimum is 150. See the problem here with Tez? Tez was like Tez was
qualify.
Tez was he was trying to fight with the number there and try to break a record. Not the record you want to break. He also lost weight between the Senior Bowl and the Combine, which is bass backwards. I was talking to Alex about this with Tez, and I'm just gonna lump Tez in here. I'm gonna keep talking about him just for another second because he was my biggest loser as well. I was talking to Alex about this. If you're Tez, and this is another thing that you take away from like just Combine takeaways in general, and why agents are so important, is if you're Tez Johnson, whose game speed, if we do a round table right now, and I just ask each of you, what did you think Tez's 40 was going to be coming in? Would everybody be in the 4.3s?
Or low 4.4s? I'd probably been low 4.4s.
Yeah, that's probably where I would have been too. 4.4 somewhere.
Right. So that's the perceived speed. If you're an agent, you need to know what the outside thoughts are about your player and the inside thoughts from teams. If teams think, and if the outside people think, and the narrative is that your guy is a 4.36 guy, 4.38 guy, right? And he's not. If he's not that fast, don't let him run.
Right. Just
And
big dude,
if you
eat
wanted
steaks
to-
and burgers and come in at $1.60, please.
Bingo. And he weighs in at like 157 or something at the Senior Bowl. You gain 10 pounds. You weigh in at the combine at 167, and guess what you do at the combine? Diddly squat. Diddly squat. And then you go to your pro day and you weigh in at your normal weight, 153. And you run a hand-timed 4.46, 4.45. And the thought in people's brains go, well, this guy's 165. He ran a 4.45.
Mm-hmm.
Whole different ball game than being almost 150 and running a 4.5. And I know NFL teams are smarter than that, but a lot of this can be viewed as like perceived, especially with these middle late round guys. If anybody gets to like on tape, he looks like he runs a 4.3. Like they're gonna believe a thing, So I think that's another big part of the whole combine experience, though.
Yeah, we all saw Hard Knocks with the Giants, and I've been a Bears fan for my whole life. I think some of these teams are stupid. I do. I do. I could see that. I could see the old Bears with whatever the hell their GM was going, oh man, Tez Johnson looks pretty good. Did you see? He didn't run at the combine, but he ran at the pro day. So anyway.
Somebody puts their whole front office on a jet to go to Oregon. We got to get this receiver, dude. Got to get him. Why isn't he Why isn't he on the scale? Why didn't he get on the scale at the pro day?
Yeah.
Oh, he ran fast. I'm good.
Yeah. The one thing you're forgetting, they probably would have flown all those guys out and coach, back in the day, just to go out to Oregon. Anyway, Mr. Babbage, do you have a loser?
Yeah, I mean, I was hearing that speech from Cody, and all I kept thinking was, man, that sounds like advice I wish I could have given Kaleb Johnson a couple of days ago as well. Just because you think about the speed of these 40 times, and then he's out here running a 4.57. And reason for me why that's such a big problem is because he needed to kind of play catch up to be truly lumped in with, Judkins, Henderson, and be that, that first round pick that he was mocked to be. And he needed to be up to par in the speed category to make that happen. And the way for him to have best navigated that narrative was keeping things a mystery at the combine, and then getting that favor of the pro day. And what's interesting too in looking at that combine IQ is after the 20-yard mark, he accelerated at a much slower rate than the average running back, and that's just the average running back of this draft class. So that's a bad sign for Kaleb Johnson. I think it's not a huge deal in the grand scheme of things, but could have hurt him for sure.
Yeah, you don't want to get caught in the current of this running back class, because you can go from running back 5 to running back 9 like that, and that could be 50 draft picks. Like, who knows where it could be.
With Tootin, like running the 4.32, like I'm not saying I think it'll happen, but it'd be so NFL for you to have a stinky combine and then all of a sudden 4.32, Tootin is getting drafted ahead of you in the second round.
Yeah.
Yep.
So to end this episode, we have to, and I'll go around the other way because I feel like I've asked Cody first, like multiple times. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but Matty, who's a sleeper that our audience should know about that no one is talking about right now, but we should not only know about them, but they should have a a special place in our rookie rankings.
I have two of them in mind, and Cody kind of mentioned one earlier, so I wonder if he's going to go back to that well. So I'm going to go with my number 2 pick here, DJ Giddens from Kansas State.
Boom.
6 feet, 212. He's got the 10-10 broad, second best in the class, 4.43 top 7 in the class, 39.5-inch vert, second best in the class, 4th highest speed score. The kid can pass block. He had 1,300 rushing yards. He's a perennial 1,000-yard rusher in college. And it just the because of the hype of this class and the sheer saturation of quality backs, he's kind of just lumped in with all of them. And even in my rankings, he's not really all that high. I'm probably going to move him up after talking about him here. Just I don't know. I don't know how an NFL team can look at this kid and not just absolutely salivate over his potential in the NFL, given his size and explosiveness.
Mr. Babbage, what about you?
I'll go back to the well here. I'll talk about Brashard Smith again. I've been talking about him for a while, and I think he's got such a nice role waiting for him in the NFL, especially in terms of fantasy relevance and that PPR role. And he's still projected to be like a 4th round rookie pick. So like we're literally just on our way to having Tyrone Tracy happen again. And so I'm on my knees praying every night that Brashard Smith just gets a good landing spot with anything reasonable draft capital wise. And the game will be on. If he stays in the 4th round ADP, I truly might have him on every dynasty roster if I can do it, because I think like DJ Giddens was another great name to mention, and he's going to be steamed up to the point where like he's ranked on 46th right now on Keep Trade Cut, but I bet after draft time, especially if he gets that boosted draft capital, he'll be a late 3rd, if not early 3rd.
Cody.
Matty, what was your other one that you thought I was going to take?
Say it, and then I'll bring it up. Come back to me after Cody's, and I don't think you're going to say it. I got 2 here that I struggle between, and I'm gonna lay it out as concise as I can. Jack Besh from TCU, who I think is becoming more mainstream after the Senior Bowl. Didn't run, but he did do the on-field drills. And then Jimmy Horn Jr. from Colorado bumped up 11 spots in my ranking from 28 to 17 at the wide receiver position, which is, again, not high, but he's just continuing to build. He ran a 4.46, which is actually a little bit slower than we expected him to get into the 4.3s. Down season this year compared to last year, caught 6 touchdowns, over 500 yards with Shedeur and Travis and whatnot. But both of these guys on the on-field stuff, at Roster Watch, we've graded all the routes and the gauntlet at the combine the last 3 years. And the top tier of guys is a pretty strong list. Kayshon Boutte, Roma Dunze, Puka Nacua, Josh Downs, Tank Dell, our guy Charlie Football, Zay Flowers, Tyler Scott, that scored 25 points or more in the route drills and the gauntlet combined. And Jimmy Horn and Jack Besh led the class at 25.5 points each. And Luther Burden was just a touch behind him with 25 points up in that tier 1 area. And this is, guys like Ladd McConkey, Jaxson Smith, and Jigbar just on those guys' heels. But they did a very good job on the on-field stuff. So I just wanted to say both their names. Jack Besh, TCU, had a great Senior Bowl, and Jimmy Horn, who had a good Shrine Bowl as well.
Yeah, these questions this question just makes me want all the 3rd round rookie picks that I can get, because I have a couple names. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna steal one from you, because I heard Cody talking about this guy on Theo's show. And that's RJ Harvey. You do a quick look at RJ Harvey. Just go look up his stats at UCF. Over 1,400 yards in 2023, over 1,500 yards this year. He has 2 seasons with 20 receptions, and the other season he had 19 receptions, so it's almost at that threshold that we like to see. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, well, maybe not out of nowhere for some people, but out of nowhere for me, because I'm not, I haven't broken down the tape yet. 4.40 flat He's a little bit undersized, but there's something there. 5'8", 205 pounds. But I think there's something there, and I think that's a name that people should be paying attention to. The other player is Taj Brooks, and for the same reason. Maybe he broke out a little bit later in 2023, but he broke it. When he broke out big time. Over 1,500 rushing yards, 10 touchdowns in 2023, then 17 touchdowns this year, 3 straight seasons where he has over 20 receptions. And then, he's a bigger running back, so I wasn't expecting anything crazy for a time. But 4.52 in the 40-yard dash, like, that's fine. You can work with that. 5'9", 214 pounds is what he weighed in at. Everything else was fairly decent from what I saw. So I think those two guys. I mean, we could go down the list of players. I mean, Rocket Sanders is so intriguing too. I'll just throw his name out there as well. But like all these running backs, like I could list probably 2 or 3 more, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 more. Like this class is really something else. It's like I was gonna mention Jaden Blue, but I can't now because he's I don't know. He's not the most savory character, I guess. So his dog rating's really low. So Jaden Blue's a trap. So don't fall for that. Yeah, kitty cat. But yeah, thank you guys so much. Any final thoughts before we wrap up here? And then I'll give you guys time to plug anything that you got to plug. But any final thoughts? How did we do tonight?
Matty, who's that guy?
The guy was Donovan Edwards. Donovan Edwards.
Donnie.
And if I could know one thing, if I could know just one thing from the NFL world, the front offices, I need to know how they view these, what we call in baseball, as post-hype sleepers. These guys that either have tremendous high school, recruit pedigree or have balled out in the past that had lackluster 24s. I'm talking about Ollie Gordon, Donovan Edwards, and Rocket Sanders. Those are the 3 names that were good. They were in contention to be in the top tier of this class in 2024, in 2023. It didn't play out this way. But then all of a sudden, Donovan Edwards comes out. He's got the size. He's explosive. We know he can receive. He has the 5-star pedigree coming out of high school, the national championship pedigree, the Michigan man thing, all that behind him. Rocket Sanders, again, was the belle of this class before he got hurt, transfer, all that stuff. And then Ollie Gordon, who was a mega producer in 23, didn't produce in 24. So if I could just know how these NFL teams are approaching these 3 guys, it would make a big difference because I love Edwards, I love Gordon, and I love Sanders. So I'm going to lean on these rankings, and I don't know if I should. That's what I want to know about.
Yeah. I mean, I personally believe that come NFL draft time on day 2, get your popcorn ready. Like get your favorite beverage ready because we're going to see some fireworks. Some of these running backs are like, I just think this class is awesome. And not just the top names. You mentioned some, those 3 guys that you mentioned, Matty, are perfect. The perfect guys to bring up because those are the type of guys, and Ollie Gordon especially. I mean, I know I'm stealing the Oklahoma State maybe narrative with Chuba Hubbard, but Chuba Hubbard kind of had a similar career arc where, he had a bad last year that pushed him down to day 3. But now look at him, with the Carolina Panthers, he's found a home. Like, they'd be dumb to take a running back, even though they could because it's the Carolina Panthers. But fun fact about the Panthers, they're paying the running back position more than they're paying the quarterback position, more than they're paying the tight end position, more than they're paying the wide receiver position. That's how dumb they are, but maybe they'll cut Miles Sanders and that could change. But the point is that they have something in Chuba Hubbard, and that's the exact kind of name that these guys are entering this draft class. And I think they're all really good. And if they find the right landing spot, which there are a ton of good landing spots available, look out. I mean, all it takes is the right day 2 landing spot for one of these guys to just shoot up the rankings. So I'm right there with you. All right. Is that going to do it for us? Cody and Matty, thank you again for joining. Cody, go ahead and plug whatever you have to plug. I know we've done a little bit of that already, and then Matty, do the same.
Everything's over at rosterwatch.com. You can tap in over there for like my rookie spotlights, mock drafts, things of that nature. I do have a daily show on YouTube and on podcast. It's just called the Draft Rankings Show. You can Google it, YouTube it, podcast it, whatever. It's a daily show, sub 10 minutes, all NFL draft conversation. And Seth, Matt, always appreciate you guys having us on. This is like our, I don't know, a dozenth time. I like that verbiage. Dozenth time coming on the show. I know you like that, Seth, with all the editing you've done in your years. But anyways, thank you guys. Appreciate y'all, and I always love you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having us on again. You can find me on X at Matty Kiwoom. South Harmon is the brand. SouthHarmonFF.com. South Harmon FF on YouTube. That's where you can get all this, all the work that's going down over right now.
Yeah, make sure you go check out their draft guide too, because I saw a sneak peek of that and the graphics look amazing. I know the team over there is putting in a ton of work on that. So that's something you're going to want to check out, and go over to South Harmon. Go to Cody's YouTube channel, thedraftrankings.com. Do it today. Click the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Do it now. Fix your life. We've gotten so many new subscribers. To those who have subscribed, thank you. We appreciate that. We appreciate that more than you know. And, you know, all it takes is clicking the button, click the alarm bell till it goes ding, and you'll be notified when we post new content, which is quite regularly now. So with that being said, I hope you had a great combine. Matt Babbage, I always forget about you. Is there anything that you
got to do the host thing where you just go for myself, for Matt Babbage? Like I'm good.
Come on. It's bedtime for you. How old are you?
I got like 4 hours of sleep last night. It's not necessarily.
Okay.
You know the flow. Jimmy Theismann, Aaron Rodgers were out, right? Isn't that the flow for our?
It was Chase Brown. I messed up bad.
Chase Brown.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Wiseman for
that.
Heisman.
Feels a little premature. So we had to take that one out, and then so now it's just nobody cares about Aaron Rodgers.
I'm not gonna lie, I forgot about the Wiseman for Heisman thing, but thank you for reminding me, so we can have a 10-minute conversation at the end of this podcast about Iowa football. No, just kidding. Nobody cares about Aaron Rodgers. Wiseman for Heisman. Stay tuned for Cody and I's Substack on the deepest, darkest secrets of Big Ten football, including Nate Stanley and his God knows what he's got going on.
Greatest quarterback of all time.
Greatest quarterback of all time. Oh, my God. Only slightly worse than, that defensive tackle we had at
Speaking
quarterback.
Of which, Matt Corral
Duncan Hill. That's who. Duncan Hill.
I'm not. By God, I'm not listening to this fucking Iowa stuff.
All right. Matty's gone. We'll see. That almost did turn into 10 minutes on Iowa football. We will see you later. Nobody cares about Aaron Rodgers. Nobody cares about Aaron Rodgers. And we will see you later. Bye-bye, everybody.